The annual company gala was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became the night that changed everything. My wife had been talking about this event for weeks, how important it was for her career, how the entire executive team would be there. She looked stunning in her black evening dress, and I was proud to be her husband. Or at least I was, until I saw what happened next. We'd been at the event for about an hour. The usual corporate small talk, overpriced drinks, and networking conversations. My wife was in her element, working the room like she always did. I was getting us drinks from the bar when I heard her laugh from across the room. Not her genuine laugh, but that forced professional one she used with clients. When I turned around, I saw him, her boss, the guy she'd mentioned countless times, always with that weird tone in her voice that I could never quite place. He was standing way too close to her, his hand resting on the small of her back. But then, as I watched in disbelief, he moved his hand to her waist and pulled her closer. That's when I heard it clear as day, cutting through the ambient noise of the gala. She's my +1 tonight. The exit door is right there. He said it loud enough for the small group around them to hear, loud enough for me to hear from 20 FT away. My wife's face went red, but she didn't pull away. She didn't tell him to stop. She just stood there, frozen, while this arrogant piece of work essentially claimed ownership of her in front of their colleagues. The drinks in my hands might as well have been made of lead. Time seemed to slow down as I processed what just happened. This wasn't some misunderstood gesture or innocent comment. This was a deliberate public humiliation of her, of me, of our marriage. I set the glasses down on the nearest table and started walking toward them. With each step, my vision became clearer, my purpose more defined. The conversations around me faded into background noise. All I could focus on was the smug expression on his face and the way my wife was still standing there, not moving away from his grip. When I reached them, the small group had gone quiet. They could sense the tension building like a storm about to break. My wife's eyes met mine, and I saw something in them I'd never seen before. Not embarrassment, not anger at him, fear of me. "Honey," she started to say, but I held up my hand. "No," I said calmly, my voice cutting through the sudden silence. "Don't." I looked directly at her boss, this self-important executive who thought he could treat my wife like his personal property. He was still holding her waist, still wearing that arrogant smirk like he just won some kind of game. "Let me ask you something," I said, reaching up to loosen my tie. "Do you think that kind of behavior is appropriate?" He actually had the nerve to laugh. "Listen, buddy, this is a company event. Maybe you should stick to the open bar and let the adults handle business." That's when I pulled my tie completely off and let it drop to the floor. "Then you won't need this anymore," I said, my voice steady and calm. The confusion on his face lasted exactly 2 seconds. Then my hand was around his throat, and he was no longer the dominant presence in the room. His grip on my wife's waist disappeared as his hands flew to his neck, trying to pry my fingers loose. "Here's how business really works," I said, my voice low but clear enough for everyone nearby to hear. "You treat people with respect. You don't put your hands on someone else's wife. And you definitely don't humiliate a man in front of his peers." His eyes were bulging now, his face turning red. He was making choking sounds. But I wasn't squeezing hard enough to actually hurt him, just hard enough to make my point crystal clear. "You're going to apologize," I continued. "To her, to me, to everyone who had to witness your pathetic display of what you think passes for authority." The security guards were pushing through the crowd now, I could see them coming, but I wasn't worried. I made my point. This pompous executive who thought he could treat people like objects was about to learn a very important lesson about consequences. I released my grip and stepped back. He dropped to his knees, gasping and coughing, his expensive suit wrinkled, his carefully styled hair disheveled. The powerful executive who'd been so confident moments before now looked like exactly what he was. A bully who'd finally met someone who wouldn't back down. "Sir, we need you to come with us," one of the security guards said. But his tone wasn't hostile. If anything, he sounded almost apologetic. I looked down at the man still on his knees, then at my wife, who was staring at me with a mixture of shock and something else I couldn't quite identify. "Are you all right?" I asked her. She nodded but didn't speak. "Good," I said. Then I turned to the security guard. "I'll come quietly. But first, I think this gentleman has something he'd like to say." Her boss was still catching his breath, still trying to process what had just happened. The entire gala had essentially stopped to watch this confrontation unfold. Conversations had ceased. The music seemed quieter. Even the wait staff had paused in their duties. He started, his voice. "I apologize." "Louder," I said. "I apologize," he said, his voice carrying across the silent room. I was inappropriate and disrespectful. I picked up my tie from the floor and straightened my jacket. "Justice or just rage?" I said, looking around at the faces staring at us. "I guess that depends on whether you think some people are above accountability." The security guards escorted me out, but I walked with my head high. Behind me, I could hear the murmur of conversation starting up again. But they weren't about quarterly reports or market projections anymore. They were about what they just witnessed, about the executive who thought he was untouchable, and the husband who proved him wrong. As we reached the exit, I turned back one last time. My wife was still standing where I'd left her, surrounded by her colleagues. But she looked smaller somehow, less confident, and her boss was finally getting to his feet. But the damage to his reputation was already done. 10 minutes. That's all it took to change everything. 10 minutes to show everyone in that room that some lines shouldn't be crossed, and some behavior has consequences. Whether they called it justice or rage didn't matter to me. What mattered was that respect had been restored, even if everything else was about to fall apart. The police station smelled like disinfectant and stale coffee. I'd been sitting in the holding area for 3 hours, waiting for someone to tell me what came next. The assault charge was inevitable, but honestly, I felt more at peace than I had in months. Sometimes a man has to take a stand, regardless of the consequences. My wife finally showed up around midnight. She looked exhausted, her makeup smudged, still wearing that black dress from the gala. But there was something different about her demeanor. She wasn't rushing to my defense or expressing outrage about what her boss had done. Instead, she seemed almost annoyed. "The lawyer says they'll probably drop the charges if you agree to anger management classes," she said without even looking at me. "He's not pressing charges. Apparently, half the company witnessed what he said to me." "Good," I said. "And what about you? Are you pressing charges against him for sexual harassment?" She finally looked at me then, and I saw something in her eyes that made my stomach drop. Not relief, not gratitude, irritation. "Why would I do that?" she asked. It wasn't sexual harassment. He was just, "It's complicated." Complicated? I stood up studying her face. A man grabs your waist at a public event and tells me you're his +1 and it's complicated. She sighed like I was being unreasonable. "You don't understand the corporate world. There are dynamics at play that you can't just solve with your fists. That's when it hit me. The tone I'd never been able to place when she talked about him. The late nights at the office that had become more frequent over the past 6 months. The way she dressed differently on certain days, claiming it was for important meetings. "How long?" I asked quietly. "How long?" "What?" "Don't play dumb. You know exactly what I'm asking." She looked away, and in that moment of silence, everything became clear. The signs had been there for months. I'd just been too trusting, too focused on supporting her career ambitions to see what was really happening. "It's not what you think," she said finally. "Then explain it to me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my wife has been having an affair with her boss. And tonight, he decided to publicly claim ownership of what he thinks is his." Her shoulders slumped. "It started 4 months ago after the Johnson contract. We were working late and stop." I held up my hand. "I don't need the details. I just need to know one thing. Was tonight the first time he's acted like that in public?" She shook her head slowly. "So this has been going on for months. Him treating you like his personal property and you letting it happen." "It's not that simple," she said, her voice getting defensive. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The competition for the senior partner position. He has influence, so you decided to sleep your way to the top." The slap came fast, but I saw it coming and didn't try to avoid it. Let her have that moment of anger. It was probably the most honest emotion she'd shown all night. "Don't you dare judge me," she hissed. "You work your little 9-to-5 job and come home to your beer and Netflix. I'm building something. I'm climbing a ladder you could never even reach. By spreading your legs for the boss." This time she raised her hand again, but I caught her wrist. "Once was enough," I said calmly. "You want to talk about judgment? Let's talk about how you stood there tonight while another man humiliated your husband in front of 50 people. Let's talk about how your first concern isn't that I defended our marriage, but that it might complicate your promotion prospects." I released her wrist and sat back down. "I want a divorce," I said. The words hung in the air between us like a physical presence. She stared at me, mouth slightly open, clearly not expecting this conversation to go in this direction. "You're being dramatic," she said. "One mistake doesn't end a marriage." "One mistake," I laughed, but there was no humor in it. 4 months of lies. For months of letting another man treat you like his possession. For months of coming home to me and pretending to be a faithful wife. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern of choices. "I never slept with him," she said quickly. "Don't lie to me anymore. I'm done with lies." She looked around the police station waiting area, suddenly aware that we weren't alone. A few other people were scattered around, and our voices had been getting louder. "Can we please discuss this at home?" she whispered. "No, we're going to discuss it right here, right now. Because I'm not going home with you tonight or any other night. You're overreacting." Yes, there was some inappropriate behavior, but nothing actually happened. Something did happen. You chose him over me. You chose your career over our marriage. You chose to let another man disrespect both of us rather than stand up for what we built together. She was crying now, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration, of anger that her carefully constructed world was falling apart. "Where will you go?" she asked. "That's not your concern anymore. What about the house, the mortgage? Keep it. Keep everything. I don't want anything that reminds me of the woman I thought I married." The police officer finally called my name. The paperwork was done. Charges dropped with the agreement that I'd attend anger management classes. Fine by me. Maybe they teach me better techniques for dealing with men who think they can take what doesn't belong to them. As we walked out of the station together, she tried one more time. This doesn't have to end our marriage. We can work through this. Counseling, therapy, whatever you want. I stopped walking and turned to face her under the fluorescent lights of the parking lot. You want to know the difference between us? I said. When another man disrespected you tonight, my first instinct was to defend you. When I defended you, your first instinct was to protect him. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. But it is simple. You made your choice 4 months ago. Tonight, I made mine. I started walking toward my truck, leaving her standing alone under those harsh lights. She called after me, but I didn't turn around. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Some trust once broken can't be repaired. As I drove away, I thought about the look on her boss's face when I had my hand around his throat. Fear. Real fear. Not the corporate posturing or intimidation tactics he was used to. Just the raw, honest fear of a man who suddenly realized he wasn't as powerful as he thought. Tomorrow, I'd start putting the pieces of my life back together. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The truth was finally out in the open, and the pretending was over. I spent the next morning at my brother's place, nursing a cup of coffee and staring at my phone. 7 missed calls from my wife. 12 text messages ranging from apologetic to angry to desperate. I deleted them all without reading past the first few words. Around noon, curiosity got the better of me. Not about her messages, but about the man who thought he could publicly humiliate me and walk away unscathed. Her boss, the untouchable executive who was probably sitting in his corner office right now, planning his next move. I drove to her office building and parked across the street, not to confront anyone or cause more drama, but to observe, to understand what I was really dealing with. Within an hour, I had my answer. He pulled up in a silver Mercedes, acting like nothing had happened. Expensive suit, confident stride, the whole corporate warrior persona. But I noticed something else, the way the security guard nodded at him with just a little less respect than usual. The way a few employees in the lobby glanced at him and whispered to each other. Word travels fast in corporate environments, especially when it involves executives getting physically dominated at company events. That's when I saw her, my wife, walking out of the building with him, not separately like colleagues might, together. His hand was on her lower back again, guiding her toward his car. The same possessive gesture from the gala, except now there was no crowd to witness it. No husband to intervene. They drove off together, and I followed at a distance. Not because I wanted to torture myself with the details, but because I needed to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. Knowledge is power. And right now, I felt like I'd been operating with incomplete information for months. They went to a restaurant downtown, upscale place, the kind where they validate parking and the appetizers cost more than most people spend on lunch. Through the window, I watched them sit at a corner table, leaning toward each other like lovers, not like a boss comforting an employee after a difficult situation. I took photos, not for revenge, but for documentation. If this was going to get ugly legally, I wanted evidence. My phone buzzed. A text from my wife. "Where are you? We need to talk. I can explain everything." I typed back. "You're explaining plenty right now. Enjoy lunch." My phone rang immediately. I answered on the 4th ring. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice tight with panic. "I mean, I'm watching you have lunch with your boyfriend at Romano's. The way he's touching your hand across the table is very explanatory." Silence on the other end. Then you're following me. I'm gathering information. There's a difference. This is harassment. No, this is a husband learning the truth about his wife. What you're doing with another man while married to me might qualify as something else entirely. I hung up and watched as she frantically looked around the restaurant, then said something urgent to him. He looked angry, his jaw tight. That same arrogant expression from the gala returning. They left the restaurant quickly, separately this time. She got in her car and drove toward home. He got in his Mercedes and headed back toward the office. The performance was over, at least for now. But I wasn't done gathering information. That evening, I went home to collect some clothes and personal items. The house felt different now, like a stage where a play had been performed for months without me realizing I was just a prop. While packing, I did what I probably should have done months ago. I looked through her things. Her laptop was password protected, but she'd always been predictable with passwords. Our anniversary date, her mother's maiden name, variations of the same patterns she'd used for years. The email account opened on the third try. The first message I found was from 2 weeks ago. Can't wait for this weekend. My husband thinks I'm at the spa with friends. The response? My place? Or the usual hotel? I scrolled back further. Months of messages, plans, arrangements, intimate details I didn't need to read, but couldn't stop myself from seeing. Hotel reservations, weekend trips disguised as work conferences. A web of lies so elaborate it was almost impressive in its scope. But the worst part wasn't the affair itself. It was the tone. The way she wrote about me in these messages. He's so naive. He actually believes I'm working late again. It's almost too easy. They weren't just having an affair. They were laughing at me, mocking the husband who was too trusting, too focused on supporting her career to see what was happening right in front of him. I printed everything. Every email, every message thread, every hotel reservation receipt she'd saved. The evidence was overwhelming, but more than that, it was revealing. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was a calculated deception that had been going on for months. My phone buzzed with another call from her. I ignored it and kept reading. There was a message from just last week that made my blood run cold. She was complaining to him about me, about how I'd been asking more questions about her late nights. His response, "Don't worry. After the promotion goes through next month, we can handle the husband situation more permanently." Handle the husband situation like I was a problem to be solved rather than a person to be respected. I was still reading when I heard her car in the driveway. She came through the front door, calling my name, her voice echoing through the house with forced cheerfulness. "Honey, your truck's here, so I know you're home. We really need to talk about last night." I walked down the stairs carrying a box of my things and a manila folder full of printed emails. "You're right," I said. "We do need to talk." She saw the box first, then the folder, and her face went through a series of expressions. Confusion, recognition, fear, and finally anger. "You went through my private emails. Your private emails about our marriage. I think that makes them my business. That's a violation of privacy. That's rich coming from someone who's been violating our marriage vows for 4 months." I set the box down and opened the folder, pulling out a few pages. "Let's see," I said, scanning the printed emails. "Hotel reservations for weekends. I thought you were at work conferences. Messages about how naive your husband is. Plans to handle the husband situation after your boyfriend's promotion goes through." Each revelation hit her like a physical blow. She opened her mouth to speak several times, but no words came out. "The spa weekend with your friends last month. I continued. Actually, a weekend at the Marriott downtown with him. The work conference in Chicago never happened. You were at his cabin upstate. Stop, she said quietly. The best part is this message from 3 weeks ago where you tell him how guilty you feel lying to me. And he responds by saying you shouldn't feel guilty about upgrading your life. Stop reading those. Upgrading your life. That's how he sees your marriage to me, as something you're upgrading from. I closed the folder and looked at her directly. For months, I said 4 months of elaborate lies, hotel reservations, fake conferences, and mocking your naive husband behind his back. And last night when I defended you, your first concern was protecting him. She was crying now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no desire to comfort her. Just a cold, clear understanding of exactly who I'd been married to. I never meant for it to go this far. She said, "You meant for it to go further. You and your boyfriend were planning to handle the husband's situation after his promotion. It's not what you think, it's exactly what I think. You've been planning to leave me. You just wanted to wait until he had more power and security. Use me for stability while you positioned yourself for something better." I picked up my box and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Away from here? Away from you. Away from this entire situation you created. We can fix this. Marriage counseling. Anything you want?" I stopped at the door and turned back to her. "You want to fix this? Call your boyfriend and tell him the husband's situation just handled itself." As I walked out, I heard her calling after me. But the words didn't matter anymore. Nothing she could say would change what I'd read, what I'd seen, what I now understood about the person I'd shared my life with. The truth was finally complete, and it was uglier than I'd imagined. But at least now I knew exactly what I was dealing with and exactly what needed to be done next. The next morning, I sat in a family law attorney's office with copies of everything I'd found. The lawyer, a sharp woman in her 50s, reviewed the evidence with the clinical detachment of someone who'd seen this story play out hundreds of times before. "This is comprehensive," she said, flipping through the printed emails, hotel receipts, explicit messages, timeline documentation in a no-fault divorce state. "This won't affect property division, but it certainly paints a clear picture of marital misconduct. I don't want her money," I said. "I want her exposed. That's not how divorce law works. But there are other avenues we can explore." She explained the process, the timelines, the likely outcomes. My wife would get half of everything we built together, regardless of her infidelity: the house, the savings, the retirement accounts. Standard procedure in a no-fault state. However, the lawyer continued, "If you're serious about exposure rather than financial gain, there are ways to make this public record. Filing for divorce based on adultery creates a paper trail. Court documents become public information. Do it. There's something else you should consider. Your wife's employer has policies regarding relationships between supervisors and subordinates. What you've documented here could constitute workplace harassment, abuse of power, and policy violations." That got my attention. "Keep talking. Many companies have ethics hotlines, HR departments that take these situations seriously, especially when there's documented evidence of a power imbalance being exploited." I left the lawyer's office with a clear plan and a timeline. The divorce papers would be filed within 48 hours. But before that happened, I had other moves to make. That afternoon, I researched her company's corporate structure, employee handbook, and ethics policies. Everything was available on their website, probably updated after various harassment scandals that had cost other companies millions. The ethics policy was crystal clear. Romantic or sexual relationships between supervisors and direct reports are strictly prohibited and may result in immediate termination. There was an anonymous reporting system, a detailed investigation process, and a zero-tolerance policy for retaliation. Perfect. I spent the evening organizing everything. Chronologically, emails, hotel receipts, restaurant charges on her credit card that matched the dates in their messages. A timeline that showed not just an affair, but a systematic abuse of corporate power and policy violations that had been going on for months. My phone had been buzzing all day with calls and messages from my wife. I'd ignored them all, but around 8 p.m., she tried a different approach. She showed up at my brother's place. "I know you're in there," she called through the door. "Your truck is parked outside." My brother looked at me with raised eyebrows. "Want me to tell her you're not here?" "No. Let her in. This conversation needs to happen eventually." She looked terrible. Hair unwashed, makeup smudged, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. The confident corporate executive was gone, replaced by someone who looked desperate and confused. "Thank you for seeing me," she said, sitting down across from me in my brother's living room. "I'm not seeing you. You're trespassing, and I'm being polite enough not to call the police. I deserve that. I deserve all of this. But we need to talk about what happens next." What happens next is simple. I filed for divorce. You'll be served papers tomorrow. Her face went pale. "You don't have to do this. We can work through this." "No, we can't. What we had is over. What happens now is just paperwork. What about forgiveness? What about second chances? Forgiveness is for people who make mistakes. What you did wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated decision you made every day for 4 months." She started crying, but I felt nothing. Those tears might have meant something a week ago. Now they just looked like another manipulation tactic. "I'll do anything," she said. "Counseling, therapy, I'll quit my job. Anything you want. I don't want anything from you. That's the point. What about what we built together? The house, our life, our plans. You mean the house where you planned to live with another man after you handled the husband situation? Those plans." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "You read everything. I read enough. I read about how naive I was. I read about your boyfriend's promotion timeline. I read about weekend trips disguised as work conferences. I read about a woman who spent 4 months mocking her husband behind his back. Those emails don't tell the whole story. They tell enough of it." I leaned forward, looking directly at her. "Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow, you'll be served divorce papers. The day after that, your company's ethics department is going to receive a very detailed report about policy violations involving you and your supervisor." Her eyes went wide. "You can't do that. It will ruin my career." "Your career? The one you built by sleeping with your boss? The one where you violated company policy for months while lying to your husband? That career? Please don't do this. I'll lose everything. You should have thought about that before you decided to upgrade your life at my expense." She was sobbing now, full body shaking. The kind of crying that comes when someone realizes the consequences of their actions are finally catching up with them. "I never meant to hurt you," she said. "Yes, you did. Every hotel reservation, every fake conference, every message laughing about your naive husband. You meant to hurt me. You just didn't mean to get caught. What do you want from me? What can I do to fix this?" "Nothing. There's nothing you can do. The damage is done and the consequences are already in motion. I love you." "No, you don't. You love the stability I provided while you explored other options. You love having a backup plan while you positioned yourself for something better. You love the idea of me, not the reality of me. I stood up, ending the conversation. The lawyer will contact you about the divorce proceedings. Don't contact me again. Don't come to my brother's house. Don't try to negotiate or bargain. It's over. She sat there for a moment, looking smaller and more broken than I'd ever seen her. Part of me might have felt sorry for her if I hadn't read those emails, if I hadn't seen her laugh about deceiving me, if I hadn't watched her protect the man who publicly humiliated me. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there are consequences. You're sorry your careful plan fell apart. But you're not sorry for what you did. If you were sorry for what you did, you would have stopped doing it." After she left, my brother brought me a beer and sat down. "You sure about this path you're taking?" he asked. "Completely sure. It's going to get ugly. Divorce always does. It's already ugly. I'm just making sure the ugliness belongs to the people who created it." And the ethics report to her company. Actions have consequences. She made choices. Now she gets to live with the results. Fair enough. Just make sure you're doing this for the right reasons. I'm doing it because some things can't be ignored or forgiven. I'm doing it because respect matters. I'm doing it because the next man she tries to deceive deserves to know what kind of person he's dealing with. That night, I finalized the ethics report. Names, dates, documented policy violations, evidence of abuse of power and workplace harassment. Everything organized and professional. The kind of report that corporate legal departments take very seriously. Tomorrow, the dominoes would start falling. The divorce papers would be served. The ethics investigation would begin. The carefully constructed world my wife and her boyfriend had built would start collapsing. They thought they were so clever, so untouchable. They thought they could mock the naive husband while planning their future together. They'd forgotten one important detail. Naive doesn't mean weak, and patient doesn't mean powerless. The husband's situation was about to handle itself, but not in the way they'd planned. The ethics report was submitted at 9 a.m. sharp on Wednesday. By noon, my wife was blowing up my phone with frantic calls. I ignored them all. At 2 p.m., I got a call from an unknown number. "This is David Mitchell. I think we need to talk." Her boss, the untouchable executive who thought he could claim other men's wives. About what? About the situation with your wife. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding. You've been violating company policy and sleeping with a married woman. Pretty straightforward. Listen, I don't know what she told you, but nothing inappropriate happened." I laughed. "Really?" "Because I have 4 months of hotel receipts that say otherwise." Silence on the other end. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "I want you to face the consequences of your actions. Be reasonable. We can work something out." The time for working things out was before you put your hands on my wife at a company gala. That was a misunderstanding. I was drunk. You were sober enough to tell me she was your +1. By Thursday morning, the company's investigation was in full swing. My wife tried visiting my brother's house again, but I wasn't there. I was at Starbucks across from her office building, watching the drama unfold. First, her boyfriend got called into a meeting with HR. He was in there for 2 hours. When he came out, his face was pale, and he walked directly to his car without stopping at his office. An hour later, my wife got called in. She was in the meeting for even longer. When she finally emerged, she looked devastated. That afternoon, I got a call from the company's legal department. They wanted to interview me as part of their investigation. I agreed to meet them the next day. The interview was professional but thorough. They asked about the Gala incident, about what I'd witnessed, about the evidence I provided. I answered every question honestly and completely based on our investigation. The lawyer said at the end, "We're recommending immediate termination for both employees involved. Policy violations, abuse of power, and creating a hostile work environment. Both employees. Your wife was aware of the policy and chose to engage in the relationship anyway. She's equally responsible. By Friday afternoon, it was over. Both of them were fired. My wife's career at the company she'd worked so hard to climb was finished. Her boyfriend's executive position was gone. The promotion they'd been planning, the power they thought would protect them, all of it vanished in a single week." That evening, she showed up at my brother's house one final time. She looked broken, completely defeated. "I lost my job," she said simply. "I know he lost his too." "Good. I have nothing left. You have what you chose. Actions have consequences. I made a mistake. You made a choice. Every day for 4 months, you chose to lie to me, to mock me, to plan a future with another man. That wasn't a mistake. That was who you really are." She stood there for a moment, tears streaming down her face. "What happens now? Now you figure out your life without me in it, just like you were planning to do anyway. I never wanted it to end like this. You wanted to handle the husband situation. Congratulations. You did." She walked away without another word. I watched her drive off, knowing it would be the last time I saw her as my wife. The divorce papers were finalized 2 weeks later. She got half of our assets as expected, but her career was destroyed and her reputation in the industry was ruined. Word travels fast in corporate circles. Her boyfriend tried to find another executive position, but the termination for policy violations followed him. Last I heard, he was working for a much smaller company at a fraction of his previous salary. Justice served, consequences delivered, respect restored. Sometimes the husband situation handles itself better than anyone could have planned. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment reading an article about corporate accountability in the business section. The company my ex-wife used to work for had implemented even stricter policies regarding workplace relationships, citing a recent case that had resulted in multiple terminations. They didn't mention names, but I knew exactly which case they were referring to. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother. "Saw your exit target today. She's working retail now." I didn't respond. Her life after our divorce wasn't my concern anymore. The anger management classes the court had required turned out to be useful. Not because I had anger issues, but because they taught me better ways to handle disrespect without physical confrontation. Though I couldn't say I regretted putting her boss on his knees at that gala. My new life was simpler, cleaner. No more walking on eggshells around someone else's schedule. No more wondering why my wife was working late again. No more being the naive husband who trusted too much. I'd started dating again recently. Nothing serious, just coffee meetings and casual dinners. It was refreshing to have conversations with women who didn't see me as a stepping stone to something better. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I opened the door, I found a delivery guy with an envelope. "Legal documents," he said. "Need you to sign here." Inside was a letter from my ex-wife's attorney. She was requesting spousal support, claiming she couldn't find employment in her field due to false allegations that had damaged her reputation. I called my lawyer immediately. She's claiming the ethics report was vindictive and cost her career opportunities. The lawyer explained after reviewing the documents. The ethics report was factual. I have documentation proving every allegation. I know. And that's exactly what we'll tell the judge if this goes to court. But she's desperate. Retail wages don't pay for the lifestyle she was accustomed to. Let her take it to court. I'm not paying to support the woman who betrayed me. 2 weeks later, we were in family court. My ex-wife had dressed professionally, trying to project an image of someone who'd been wrongfully terminated. Her lawyer argued that I'd acted out of vindictiveness, that the ethics report was filed in bad faith. When it was my turn to present evidence, I laid out everything systematically: the timeline of her affair, the hotel receipts, the emails mocking me, the company policy violations. The judge reviewed each piece of evidence carefully. "Your Honor," I said when asked to make a statement, "I didn't file that ethics report to be vindictive. I filed it because my wife and her supervisor violated company policies for months while planning to handle the husband's situation once his promotion went through. The evidence speaks for itself." The judge denied her request for spousal support. The evidence clearly shows that the plaintiff's termination was the result of documented policy violations, not vindictive reporting by the defendant. The consequences of those violations are not the defendant's responsibility. Outside the courthouse, my ex-wife tried to approach me one last time. "This isn't over," she said. "Yes, it is," I replied calmly. "It was over the moment you chose another man over your marriage. Everything since then has just been paperwork." That evening, I deleted her number from my phone, blocked her on social media, removed the last traces of her from my life. A year later, I ran into someone from her old company at a bar. He mentioned that her former boss was working as a mid-level manager at a small firm, making a fraction of what he used to earn. His reputation in the industry never recovered. "And your ex-wife?" he asked. "She's not my concern anymore," and she wasn't. I'd moved on completely. New apartment, new routines, new perspective on life. I'd learned that some people will take advantage of your trust if you let them. I'd also learned that standing up for yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, is always the right choice. The naive husband, who'd been mocked in those emails, was gone. In his place was someone who knew his worth, who wouldn't tolerate disrespect, who understood that actions have consequences. Sometimes people ask if I regret how things ended, if I wish I'd handled it differently. The answer is simple. I regret trusting someone who didn't deserve it. I regret being blind to the signs for so long. But I don't regret defending my dignity or holding people accountable for their choices. Respect isn't something you ask for. It's something you command. And sometimes commanding respect means showing people that crossing certain lines comes with a price they're not prepared to pay. The husband's situation had indeed been handled, just not the way they'd planned. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.